The galaxy is a tapestry of 1,000,000,000,000 threads, woven on the loom of the Force. But a loom can create patterns of light or patterns of shadow. For 1,000 years, the design was one of peace, maintained by the Jedi Knights. But in the shadows, a weaver of darkness worked, his shuttle moving silently, patiently, threading the pattern with inevitable ruin. His grand design was a masterpiece of deception, a self-assembling weapon of war known as the Clone Army. It was a sword forged in secret, meant to be placed in the Republic's hand at the precise moment of its greatest desperation, a weapon that would, at its creator's command, turn upon its masters and extinguish the light forever. This was the future as it was meant to be. But a single thread, pulled by an act of compassion, can unravel the most intricate of designs. A decade before the storm would break, on a dust-choked world at the edge of the galaxy, a single thread was tugged. The Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, a man who listened to the living Force more than the words of the Jedi Council, did not merely win a young slave boy's freedom and depart. He looked into the eyes of the boy's mother, Shmi, and saw not a piece of property to be left behind, but a person whose fate was inextricably linked to the boy's, and thus, to the fate of the galaxy itself. With his own funds and a quiet insistence that brooked no argument, he freed her. He severed the chain, not just on Anakin's past, but on the fear that would have festered within him. This one act, this single note of kindness in a galaxy preparing for a scream of war, changed everything. The boy, Anakin Skywalker, was raised in the Jedi Temple, but he was not the lonely, fearful child of a different timeline. He was whole. His mother was not a ghost haunting his dreams, but a living presence on Coruscant, her hard-won wisdom and fierce love a constant anchor. The gaping wound of attachment that Palpatine so skillfully probed and poisoned in another life was, in this one, a well-healed scar, a source of strength, not anxiety. He was still powerful, perhaps more so, for his power was not fueled by a desperate need to prove himself or to control his fears. It was a confident, steady flame. And so, the years turned. The Sith Lord, Darth Sidious, watched from the shadows of his office, his grand plan progressing. The separatist movement grew, a hydra of discontent he himself controlled. He waited for the moment of crisis, the moment he would gift the Republic its army, its salvation, and its death warrant signed in a single act. But that moment never came. The secret army on Kamino, millions of identical faces in growing tubes, remained a secret. No Jedi ever went to investigate a mysterious saber dart. The weapon was complete, but it remained in its sheath, unknown and unreachable. Instead, as the shadow of conflict fell across the Republic, a different kind of army began to form. It was not born in a laboratory, but in the hearts of people. Shmi Skywalker, once a slave, now a respected voice among the reformists in the Senate, spoke with an authority that core world aristocrats could never muster. She, alongside the idealistic Senator Padma Amidala, argued not for a centralized, state-controlled military, but for an army of the free, a coalition of planetary militias, volunteer defense forces, and citizens who would take up arms not because they were bred for it, but because they believed in what they were defending. It was a chaotic, messy, and profoundly hopeful idea. The Jedi Order, the galaxy's eternal peacekeepers, found itself fractured. Qui-Gon Jinn, older and more resolute, became the leader of the reformists, arguing that the Jedi's detachment had made them blind, that compassion was their strength, not their weakness. His former Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was the bridge, torn between his master's radical empathy and the stern traditionalism of masters like Mace Windu, who saw any embrace of emotion as the first, slippery step onto the dark path. The first true battle of the coming war was not on the fields of Geonosis, but in a senatorial apartment. Forced to act, Sidious himself emerged from the shadows, not to conquer, but to test. He attacked not just with his crimson blade, but with the very environment, aiming crushing durasteel at Shmi and Padme. It was a trap designed for Anakin's heart, a recreation of his deepest nightmare designed to trigger the rage that would push him over the edge. But the boy who faced him was not the same boy. Anakin did not lash out in blind fury. He stood firm, a bastion of protective focus. With a power that was controlled, immense, and utterly devoid of hate, he deflected the onslaught, his blue lightsaber a steady beacon in the chaos. The Sith Lord saw it then, in that moment of failed manipulation, his ultimate weapon, the Chosen One, had been disarmed by love. He retreated, his plan in tatters, but his resolve hardened. If he could not have Anakin as an apprentice, he would break him as an icon. The attempted assassination became the spark that ignited the galaxy. The army of the free was no longer an idea, it was a necessity. Ships from 1,000 different worlds, painted in 1,000 different colors, assembled. It was a ragtag fleet, a symphony of chaos compared to the sterile uniformity of the clone army that never was. The Battle of Geonosis, when it came, was not a triumphant reveal of a secret weapon, but a bloody, brutal slog. Jedi fought and died alongside volunteers, farmers, engineers, pilots, who bled real blood for a cause they believed in. The bond forged in that fire was something Palpatine had never accounted for, an army that believed. The war raged, and Sid Ious, the master manipulator, adapted. He began to win not with battles, but with narratives. He orchestrated a tragedy so profound it would eclipse all else, the destruction of a refugee ship, the Sanctuary filled with women and children fleeing the front lines. And then, through his web of puppets, he laid the blame squarely at the feet of the Jedi reformists. Qui-Gon Jinn's emotional attachment to the Skywalker boy has corrupted his judgment. Anakin Skywalker's power, unchecked by the code, has made him a rogue element, a danger to the very people he claims to protect. The public, terrified and seeking a simple enemy, turned. The Senate, manipulated by fear, moved to arrest the leaders of the reformists. And here, Sid Ious found his final, cruel victory. He turned the Jedi against themselves. Mace Windu, believing with every fiber of his being that the strict code was the only bulwark against the dark side, saw the chaos and the accusations as proof of Qui-Gon's folly. He led the traditionalist Jedi to enforce the Senate's will. The climax did not take place in a sterile chancellor's office, but in the heart of democracy itself, the Senate Rotunda. As Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin were surrounded by their own brothers and sisters in the Force, Palpatine revealed himself. But not as a Sith, he revealed himself as the strong leader the weak Senate had craved, the only one who could bring order to the chaos that emotional Jedi had created. He declared himself Emperor, and the traditionalist Jedi, in their despair and desire for order, became his Praetorian Guard, their lightsabers now tools of oppression. The final, tragic battle was not between the light and dark, but between two interpretations of the light. Jedi fought Jedi in the echoing chamber. Blue and green blades clashed, not against red, but against each other. It was the galaxy's schism mirrored in microcosm, a heartbreaking ballet of ideals turned to violence. And in that moment of ultimate darkness, it was not a warrior who turned the tide, but a former slave. Shmi Skywalker, using a smuggled comlink, broadcast a message on every frequency, to every corner of the Republic. She did not speak of tactics or strategy. She spoke of her life in chains. She spoke of the moment a Jedi showed her kindness. She spoke of the choice that now lay before them all, to be enslaved by the fear that one man offered as order, or to stand together, in all their messy, chaotic, beautiful freedom. Her voice, calm and certain, cut through the fog of war. It reached the pilots of the Free Army, the gunners on the volunteer battleships. And one by one, they turned. They turned their weapons away from the separatist fleets and aimed them at the Imperial Palace. The will of the people, for a moment, became a tangible force. In the Rotunda, Anakin faced a broken Mace Windu. He did not strike him down in anger. He disarmed him with a profound, sorrowful pity. He then turned to the newly crowned Emperor, who cackled with the power of the dark side, unleashing torrents of Force lightning. But Anakin did not absorb it. He did not retaliate. He did the one thing the Sith could never anticipate. He reached out with the Force and, with an act of immense will and precision, did not kill the man. He severed the man's connection to the Force itself, leaving nothing but a feeble, mortal shell. Justice, Anakin said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence, not vengeance. The war ended not with the extermination of the Jedi, but with their shattering. The temple stood, a damaged monument. The old council was gone. The dogmatic code was a relic. In the twilight, a small group stood on the temple steps. Qui-Gon Jinn, the maverick whose compassion had saved the galaxy. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the bridge who had helped cross into a new age. Padme Amidala, the senator whose ideals had built an army. Shmi Skywalker, the slave who had found her voice and saved the Republic with it. And Anakin, the chosen one, who had fulfilled his destiny not by destroying both the Sith and the Jedi, but by breaking the cycle of violence they represented. He was not a lord of the Sith, nor a master of the Jedi. He was simply a man, free of his nightmares, standing with his family, looking at the first stars of a new dawn. The loom was broken. The weavers were free. And the new tapestry was theirs to create.